Okay, one thing is certain, whether you're moving across town or whether you're moving across country, the cost that you actually predict for your move and the cost that you finally finish up paying, usually two very different numbers. A personal finance subject we're going to take up with Matt Heimer, Deputy Editor of SmartMoney. And Matt, I happen to know that obviously you are personally involved with this personal finance issue.
That's true, and my moving company is charging me right now for this phone conversation.
Okay, so that's one of the hidden costs that you did not predict, even though you're an expert.
That's right. Do not talk about moving company in front of the public.
Okay.
Yeah, and actually, I fly to Chicago today, pursuing my goods, which were picked up on Thursday, but will not actually arrive in Chicago until maybe this Saturday. One of the costs that is sort of hidden that you won't know about is if you're making a cross-country move or even a cross-city move, you'd think that the goods would get there sort of in the shortest possible distance from point to point, but that's not the case. You know, if you're moving at an unusual time, a non-peak time of year like we are, our moving company essentially has to wait to fill a large truck with sort of 53 feet worth of goods, and so while they picked up our stuff last week, it's basically waiting on a truck for other Chicago bound.
Really? So you're sharing a truck with other people?
Sharing a truck with other people. Now, I think the way it's been described to us, in some ways this actually saves you money. If you insist on having your own truck and you insist on an express move, then of course that's another charge. But but in our case, it's meant going somewhere between a week and 10 days without actually having any belongings. So fortunately, I'm actually living out of a locker at the Port Authority bus station right now.
Good. That would have been my choice, too.
But the bowling alley here is great.
Yeah,
So
and think of the people you meet.
Yes, exactly. And so far, we've been very satisfied with our movers, partly because they let us know in advance what a lot of these possible costs and inconveniences might be. Not all companies are that reliable about that. One hidden cost that gets busted on a lot of people who live in cities is something called the long carry charge.
Yeah.
If they can't get their van within a certain number of feet of your home, then you're going to get charged extra, maybe, say, $100 for every 100 cubic feet of goods you have, just for the fact that the movers are going to have to carry it an extra several hundred feet from your house to the truck, or vice versa. So that's an extra fee that a lot of people are unaware of. People who have homes that have many flights of stairs often face an extra charge as well.
That would certainly be true in cities where you have walk-ups.
Exactly. Or in some cases, even if you have an elevator, a lot of your furniture won't fit on it.
Right.
So, again, we're paying some of these costs, but at least our moving companies gave us an estimate in advance, letting us know, oh, you're facing these costs. So, we knew what we were getting into. But a really, really common complaint for people who are moving is that the movers make an estimate, but they don't let you know about any of these extras, and they get sprung on you at the back end when you're cutting the check.
Is there a rule of thumb? Let's say you're moving across the country or halfway across the way you are, and you kind of predict what you think your cost could be. Is there a factor of 10%, 25% that you can kind of add on just to protect yourself, or is that still too much?
You're talking about insurance?
Well, no, I'm just saying you know it's going to be more, but is it predictably more? Can you say it's going to be 10% more, 25% more? Or is that really too much up in the air?
Well, it's actually highly dependent on the price of gas, because a certain component, basically all the movers that we talked to told us that if we were doing a intra-city move, just moving somewhere else in New York City, we would have been looking at something along the lines of half of what we're paying to move it to Chicago. Mm-hmm. And that price difference essentially is driven entirely by fuel. So that said, we still got a very wide range of estimates.
All right. I'm sorry to get too personal on you, but I got to know. You're going from New York City to Chicago. I assume you live in a condo, an apartment complex, and you're going to stay in an apartment complex or a condo in Chicago. How much does it cost to move from New York to Chicago?
You mean in terms of the move, or
the move itself? How much are you going to have to write a check for to those movers? Is what I want to know.
The range of estimates we got went anywhere from $3,000 to about $7,000.
Wow!
But is that offset by the change in living? Because clearly Chicago is a much lower cost of living than any borough in New York, with the possible exception of Staten Island.
Well, that's right. It's about it's compared to Brooklyn, where I was living. The cost of living is about half.
Wow.
And that factors in, how much rent, or in terms of purely square foot per dollar in your rent. It's about a 50% discount to live in Chicago. It's also the case that New York has extra moving costs that have to do with, for example, paying really exorbitant broker fees.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, whereas in Chicago, there seems to be mostly a system where you pay a small flat fee to whoever arranges the deal. In New York, that might be 2 months' rent.
I was just thinking that New York and Bloomberg. I think we ought to tax people who move out of the city before they leave.
That's right. A departure tax.
That's right.
I'm still going to be working for a New York City-based employer, so I'm sure the appropriate large chunk of flesh will be taken out.
That was the other question I was going to ask you. I mean, when most people move from city to city, they usually change jobs. How do you work out a deal? And do most companies, are they willing to pay for your move, especially if you're moving across country?
A company is usually willing to pay for your move if they are essentially forcing you to move or requiring you to move. In my case, I'm moving by choice, so the costs are mine to absorb. But it is